Hello everyone, here we are again with a Duramax issue. If you saw my previous video on DPF full and what to do to solve your roadside issue with that, that puts you into reduced power mode, and basically all you're doing is you're shutting off your ignition. That's probably the fastest way to do it, and let your computer refine its settings and reread the how do you want to call it, the soot volume. What we learned from this was you will never be able to clean that DPF properly until you can get your exhaust temperatures up. If you're getting a P0420 code, I believe that is stating the fact that your exhaust temperatures are too low for it or below its threshold, meaning you're not getting your exhaust temperatures hot enough to burn the soot into ash, which causes the particulate filter to build up with soot, which causes restriction. We tried multiple things. There was only one thing that it came down to, and that was discovering the only way to clean that out is to burn it out. The only way to burn it out is to get your fuel flow through your exhaust, how would you say, at the appropriate atomization, and then you get the proper catalyst. I am not a mechanic. You got to know that. I am not a mechanic. These are things I've learned. My oldest son, he's a diesel mechanic. He does not work on Duramaxes, but has a pretty solid knowledge of how these function. So what I came about on this was we obviously were not getting appropriate fuel flow. We were following our exhaust temperatures while driving, and it just wasn't getting hot enough to basically clean our filter. So I thought, well, the only thing that would cause this would be the 9th injector. And so I thought, well, let's order that. The dealership wanted a pretty healthy sum for that. I found the identical part on the internet for 170, 180, whatever it was, under 200. And now I guess I would like to show you where that is located and how to replace it. And the minute you put it on, the computer sees that it can attempt a regeneration again. And boom, within about an hour of driving on the highway, the truck was like new. So as well as clearing the codes, it kept the dash light off to this point. And like I said, if we could solve that problem of keeping the dash light off, the truck was going back to the dealership and being traded for another. So we're doing a hurry up video now to show you the replacement of this injector. I must tell you, I've already done it, but we will show you all the highlights of replacing this injector and how you can do it yourself at home. Probably wouldn't attempt it roadside, but if you need to, that would be an option as well. You do need a few tools. I'll show you a makeshift one that'll kind of make your life a little simpler too. So here we go. We're going to pause the video now as we get the camera off the tripod, and we're going to show some of the highlights of what you need to remove to get to this component and replace this injector. It's not a huge project, takes a little bit of time, but I think if you have some tools, you can do this job yourself. Save yourself tons of money from hauling it to the dealership. So there you go. I'll have my cameraman grab the camera and we'll get started. Okay, we're going to just, at the moment, just kind of point out what we're going to remove and what you need to plan for. First thing you're going to need to plan for is removing this air intake elbow and this bellow. I am using a 8mm socket. I don't believe a 7 is going to fit that. 8mm it is. Loosen these up. There's 2 clamps here, and you'll be able to pop the elbow and the bellow out, and that gains you access to where the injector is and the wire that powers it. The other item, if you want to follow me over here, so that's what you need to remove right off the bat as far as large components to gain access. The next component that you're going to need to take out is the inner wheelhouse liner. This one's dirty, so it should be kind of fun to work on. But one way or another, get the inner wheelhouse liner out of the way. I threw a jack under the frame rail to raise it up to gain some clearance, and that just allows me to be able to work more freely. So we're going to get those components out of there, and then I'll show you exactly where that injector is. Okay, so cameraman, This is where it's going to get tricky, is getting the camera in there as well as where we're heading. But where we are going is right down here. You will see a shiny cylinder. The screwdriver should be pointing at it. Not quite sure if we can see that with the camera. Are you able to see it? Mm-hmm. And if you look here, you'll see this red button. That is the lock for the power supply for that injector. So we'll need to disconnect that power supply as well as remove that fuel line. Being this is a new part, I'm really not looking forward to taking that fuel line off again, but I think we'll give it a try. Like I say, we're under a time crunch because this does go back to the truck, goes back to the dealership tomorrow morning. It has been traded. Then there's 2 bolts that you'll need a 10mm socket to remove that hold that in the piping for the injector in place. Then we'll go underneath, and that's where you'll remove 1 large nut, which releases the injector nozzle from the inside, or from the side of the exhaust pipe. So we'll get started on that. We'll get this cleared out and have a little more room down in here. There's really nothing else as far as wires or anything to disconnect other than that injector. That fuel line, there's 2 bolts and 1 large nut that locks the spray nozzle into the pipe. So we'll get those done. Let's see. Let's get the wheelhouse liner out because I think there's quite a bit we can reach from under there. Okay, now you can take a look in here, and if you see, if we can get a good view in there, right here is the pipe. This is the pipe that carries the fuel down to the, we'll call it an atomizer that goes into your exhaust pipe. So as you can see, there's 1 bolt right here with a 10mm head. There's another one right up here with a 10mm head. Those are the only 2 bolts that you will need to remove as far as bolts that hold it in place. Then, if you follow back here, this line, you'll find a nut. And there it is. Right, I think, can you see my finger?
Yep.
Okay. That is the nut that needs to be removed that is in the exhaust pipe. We did wait for the engine to cool down for obvious reasons, so this one is now ready to remove. So I think while we're down here, I'll crack that loose and take these 2 bolts out only because they're easy to see. I did lie. There is one more I believe I did remove. I think I removed this injector plug, and I might have removed that bolt too. So we'll see. If we need to remove it, I might just pop them off now because it's easy. Just a little helpful hint while you're here. Now would be a nice time to change out your fuel filter, being it's easiest to do with your inner wheelhouse removed. So if you got the wheelhouse removed, may as well pick up the fuel filter and put that in at the same time. So, all right, I'm going to start popping some things loose here. We'll be pausing and clipping this video so you're not watching me walk to the toolbox and back for the appropriate tools. But there you go. Let's get started. We'll pop this line off. Okay, so just want to let everybody know what size they're going to need for a wrench. 22mm is what I'm using to reach in there, and both times, the original one and this one here, I was able to just crack it loose, and I believe I can just unthread it by hand. Make sure that you put anti-seize on this thread when you do take it apart, and put it back together, because otherwise you won't get so lucky next time removing this bolt or this thread. Or if you can get in with a stubby, which might be what we have to do. This is started spinning nice and easy, and now it's firming up. Alright, there, it's free. So I was able to get it all by hand, other than first cracking it loose. I lied when I first said that the only two bolts you'll have to take off is this one and that one. There is a mounting bracket up here too that I believe has one or two bolts in it, and we'll check and see what the thread or what the head size is on that, so you know what to use for a socket. So let's pop back up to the top. I think I'll need to get a ladder for the cameraman. Getting that connector off isn't always easy. It's in a bad location. But I used a screwdriver to assist in pushing the tab down. Now the mounting bracket, I see a 13 millimeter bolt on there, I believe. Let's reach down and find out. It is what it is. Well, actually, I think I was wrong. I think it was a 12. It did crack loose, but I don't think we fit as well as it could. Now, I think, can I grab it with my fingers, or am I going to need a magnet to get that out of there? Yep, fingers it is. Ooh, close call. Yeah, there's another mounting bolt somewhere for it. Let's see if we can, there it is. There's two. Let's confirm that was 13. It is. And we're going to need a little shorter extension. Okay, so if we go down here, right there, let's come out. You can see that we're coming down past our air intake here, and if you follow the tip of my screwdriver, there's one of the bolt holes right there. Then we're going to have to see if we can, this is tricky getting the camera down in there, but the other bolt is that one right there. And so if you look directly under this coolant hose right here, you'll see another bolt, and that one needs to come out. So I'll reach down, we'll grab that one and get that out of there for you so you can see that. Then I did disconnect the electrical connector right here. Can we see that? But yeah, the electrical connector there. Then, when we're done with that, we're going to aim for, let's see if I can hold this out of the way. We're going to aim for that fuel line right there. That's the one we're heading for. That needs to come off, and what that will be is a tube that slides in along it to release the tabs that hold it in. It's an O-ring fitting that's a snap together. And I'll show you a neat little tool that I made to release that, only because I didn't find any tools at the parts stores for removing that. So okay, we're going to pop the camera out so I can reach my hands in there, and we're going to pop that last bolt loose. Okay, so I actually got that one from below. That turned out to be a lot easier to get it from beneath, so there you have it. I am going to now show you how. Let's see if I can get enough light down in there and a camera. And we're going to pop this little retainer out. There's a little black plastic retainer. Let me go grab a trim tool to knock that out with. Okay, so to remove the fuel line from the injector, I don't have the tool to do it. So I'm going to show you how I made one. Basically, I took a Bic pen, and here's what's left of the Bic pen, but took a Bic pen, pulled the ink out, and took this tube. And what I'm doing here is I'm just sanding a taper onto the end here so it fits nicely in there. Then I'll cut it off right about there, so maybe about an inch, and then cut a slit into it so it fits over your fuel line. And basically what you're going to do is push your injector to, I could show you on the engine, but the challenge we have is we can't get the camera and my hands in there at the same time and show you. So in a nutshell, we're sliding this over the truck's fuel line, or the engine's fuel line, and pushing it into the injector housing. And what that'll do is it'll release the tabs that are holding that fuel line in place. And once you do that, once you release it, you can pull those two apart. and then the new one will just snap right together. So as simple as that. But what I'm saying is this Bic pen tube, sand a taper onto the end, cut it off at about 1 inch, cut a slit in it, full length of that, so it'll slip over the line. And it'll take some fidgeting to get that line free, but once it frees, you'll know exactly when it came loose, and you'll be able to pull the two apart. I'd love to show you in the engine, but they certainly don't give us enough engine room to show that. Once I get down in there with my hands, there's nothing to see but my fat hands in the way. So that part you'll have to envision yourself, but in a nutshell, you're just using a Bic pen tube as your fuel line release. And then once your fuel line's released, you just fish out that fuel or the injector out the top, and then drop the new one back in the same way it was. And then the two 13 mil bolts, the two 10 mil bolts, and retighten your spray nozzle that goes into your fuel pipe, or I'm sorry, your exhaust pipe. Got fuel on the brain, sorry. All right, so I'm going to finish making our little tool here and show that to you. Okay, so here is our tool that we have made. It's a little dirty, but it's probably going to get dirtier. It's tapered on the edge. I don't know if you're able to see that. How's that show up on the film or on the camera?
Good.
Okay. Then a slit cut through here. Now I cut a little more than a slit. I actually shaved a little more out, and I did that for a reason. Because when I come into the fuel line, let's call this screwdriver the fuel line. It's very similar in size. You're going to need to be able to push that on there and get it to slip over. Let's see if we can get a little... Yeah, of course. Let's hold it open. You need to get that to fit over the fuel line and snap on. And then you'll slide it into the injector and release the tabs so you can pull it apart. So I don't know if that clarifies how that tool works, but it's a simple tool. You're going to have to wrestle with it because it's not an easy place to work with. But the first tool that I made, I actually used the pen cap and used the pocket tab on it as a push for it. I don't think that helped either, but it's really in a bad spot for doing that. But you can do that and operate this with, say, a needle nose pliers pushing it in, or give a edge of a screwdriver, or if you got really long skinny fingers. But slide it, you're basically sliding it down the fuel line and releasing the tabs. So that's, I'll give that a try down here on the truck now. Let's see if we can get a light down there at the same time. There. Now, see, with the screwdriver, we've got the plastic on the line, and it's inside of these plastic tabs here. I'm sure there's some mechanic that's going to tell me some magic for how this is removed, but this is basically all I did was, you know, just push the line, push this plastic piece into it until the injector released. And it did take some messing around, but we were able to get it. Let me grab a needle nose so I can play with it a little better. Like I said, I didn't really want to take this apart again, but so this is the line we released. Here's your injector. Now, all you got to do is fish this out from here. Not complicated. And I hope nobody minds. I'm not going to pull this out. I'm actually going to start the reassembly and put this back together. There's no real need to pull it out to show you that it actually comes out, because it does. I'm almost thinking, though, it might be easier to pull the unit out through the bottom than out the top. So I'll let you choose by how your truck is set up, but they all should be quite similar. But gravity would allow that to drop out to the bottom quite effectively. And then it's just a matter of put it back together. Put the new one in, fish that in the same way you dropped your old one out, and reconnect your fuel line, reconnect your electronics for your injector, put your 4 bolts back in, remount it to your exhaust, and you're back in action. So there you go. I hope this helps. I would have liked to have done a step-by-step the day I replaced this, so you could have heard me swearing and making up all kinds of unique words for how to remove it. but once I got it removed, it was all good. All right, so now I've shown you how to remove the 9th injector. I guess I don't know what else to tell you on that other than reinstall it, everything in reverse. The Bic pen trick, I guess that is something I created. If you come up with something better, I'm all for it. I was just unable to find the tool, and digging through a junk drawer, I was able to find a Bic pen for removing the fuel line. As far as reassembly, there's really nothing special or unique about that. Just do everything in the reverse order from which you disassembled. So there you have it. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos. Thank you.